Hello everyone, my name is Eric Mullins, and I spent the past 9 years writing, illustrating, and self-publishing my own manga called Blithe. And while I've been doing this, I've been watching so much anime. I'll put my work in progress on the side here. I watch mostly dubbed, but if ever I'm given a moment of that magical free time, I'll watch subbed. Keep in mind, folks, that these reviews are all my own opinion. If you have a difference in opinion, be sure to write so in the comments section down below. I love a good conversation. With that aside, let's get into the cartoonime Netflix spectacular Castlevania seasons 1 to 4, in prep for that new Richter Belmont show coming out. I call it a cartoonime because it's an American Netflix animated show. It takes a lot from anime, but it's not one, much like the Boondocks, Avatar: The Last Airbender, and other such shows. I won't go into detail about the hows or whys, maybe in a future episode. But let's just say that for character development, writing, frames per second, fluidity, directing, and dialogue, this is more of an American cartoon than it is a Japanese anime. But after having done my review on Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, I just had this itch to really give this show a shot. I mean, I felt like I didn't even finish the second season before this, you know? But now that I finally watched it, I'm going to tell you about how it was for me, and this will maybe give you a better idea if it's worth your precious time or if it's a hard pass. A quick disclaimer, there's quite a bit of gore, there's infantile cursing that infants should probably not be listening to, and by the time you hit season 3, there's completely pointless nudity. It's like Game of Thrones, only it's not. See, Game of Thrones takes place in a magical realm alternate to Earth. Castlevania tries to link itself to grounded Our Earth history. This works very well for the video games, but not so much for the TV show. Why? Why, you ask? Well, let's get into it. There are 4 seasons spanning a length of 32 episodes, each one running at about, give or take, 25 minutes a pop. Season 1 is 4 episodes, 2, 8, 3 is 10, and 4 is 10 as well. This puts the show at roughly 13 and a half hours, yet it's full of padding and fluff. The series is already super short. Why are you running the clock and wasting all of our time? The Castlevania premise follows the idea that Dracula's family, he has a family. They are vampires for the most part. He wronged the Belmont family oh so long ago, and because of this, the Belmonts have physically trained and practiced magic in order to commit genocide to the vampire kind. For those of you that know the video games, you're not going to see the Belmonts' first quest here, neither will you see their second one. This series follows the events of Trevor Belmont from Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse, and incredibly loosely, like almost barely. In the games, he's known for being the first person to actually defeat Dracula, but it's pathetic how he kind of does this in the show. He really changed things up quite a bit. It's okay, but like, not okay sometimes. That aside, Dracula's last stand here features a very heartfelt and emotional moment with his son Alucard that I loved every single second of. Despite being a little misplaced, they should have done a bit more character development for Dracula, leading us to this emotional breakdown that he has. But all of y'all know that I do love my emotional conflict, so I enjoyed this. Let's rewind a bit here. The series starts off introducing Dracula and how he meets his wife Lisa. This was cool. I could have actually watched an entire series about how they have opposing views, yet their mutual respect for one another brings them closer together. What a great message that would have been, and what a missed opportunity that was. So the church gets their claws on Lisa and burns her at the stake for witchcraft because, like, you know, it's all the rage back in the 1470s. When Dracula finds out, he loses his mind and decides to go on a world tour, committing genocide to all of humankind. He enlists vampires from all over this world to come aid him in this, lying and telling them that it's just a culling of the humans and that they're really just going to be livestock and put into pens, which isn't his initial plan. Because normally the vampires wouldn't be cool with this. For those of you that aren't in the know, vampires, they drink human blood to the point that humans reach their expiration. That's what they do. Now in this show they can actually eat pig, but they're not really a fan of it, they don't enjoy the taste. While Dracula is on this warpath, it's up to vampire hunter Trevor Belmont and a great mage, speaker, Sifa Belnades, to save all the humans. Oh, and Alucard is there too. This is Dracula and Lisa's son. I sure would have loved to see more scenes of this person growing up in the castle, or actually just more scenes of the castle in general. It would have been nice considering castles literally in their intellectual property name. Trevor is not particularly likable at the beginning. He's a drunk, foul-mouthed, and bad-tempered. As the series goes on, he remains this way because it turns out he's a one-dimensional character that lightens up from time to time throughout most uncomfortably and negative flirting with Belnades. I say this, but some of the banter between the three heroes is pretty good. I personally just kind of get out of the viewing experience when someone says to go eat a bag of dicks in the year 1400. Side note, swearing. Where to begin with this one? I don't swear on my channel. It's just something I don't usually do. I've got nothing against it, especially when it's used to accentuate a situation or mood. However, I do have something against it when it's used as pause filler in a sentence, or if it's written inappropriately within the genre you're telling your story through. Next is Belnades, and honestly, I just can't with her. I'm just straight to Alucard. Adrian Fahrenheit's Tepesh changed his name to Alucard when he chose to go against his father, because Alucard is Dracula backwards. You take the name Alucard and you flip it around, it spells like Dracula? In the 1470s, I'm pretty sure this was clever. Other than his childish and ridiculous cursing that doesn't seem to fit his demeanor, he's an interesting character. I mean, of course he is. They made a whole video game based off of him. Comment down about how epic the game Symphony of the Night is. That game is like top shelf. He's emotionally fragile, and for a creature that is so powerful, he has little to no real-world experiences. And he brings a childlike innocence and wonder to the series that you wouldn't expect from someone of his posture. And now for the last main protagonist, Sypha Belnades. Nope. Saint Germain is a character who is mysterious and looking for something or someone. At first, I found him intriguing. You get introduced to him by the 3rd season, and when you hit the 4th one, they kind of push him in a direction without fleshing out his character well enough and giving me a rushed montage of his life. It wasn't nearly enough for me to care for him the way I feel like the writers intended for me to care for him. Dracula has an evil court of evil that consists of all sorts of one-dimensional characters from multiple video games, with the exception of Carmilla and Isaac. I can already hear a bunch of you yelling, what about Hector? He's a great character. Well, I actually like Hector. All the trauma and horrible situations he went through did nothing to change his way of thinking, and he had little to no evolution in this series. But if you think I missed something, comment section. For real, I do miss things. I am only human. Hector had a great story arc in the video games, while Isaac was just a precursor to pushing Hector's story forward. In the series, however, Isaac is fantastic from start to finish, and they changed it up big time. Isaac and Hector are both humans who have the ability to create monsters out of dead bodies using a unique magic called forging. Isaac is also Game of Thrones' Khaleesi had her story been properly told. Seeing his view of the world slowly change from season to season was actually intriguing and well written. For me personally, he was the best character in the whole series, and I'm really just not cool with that. Every main character should have been written so well. Lastly, I'll talk about Carmilla. She embodies a bit of what her alternate or original conceptions of her in past or other media involving vampires entails. She's smart, strong, and clever, but all of this gets overshadowed by her grandiose obsessions and poor mental health. She has so many great ideas, which are then extremely poorly executed, or she derails her own plans. This kind of character works so well for the universe that this Castlevania has created. At the beginning, she's actually pretty great. Once we get to Season 3, however, they take a lot away by giving her a war council of super friends. So she's never been the one to solo lead. Turns out she has 3 strong best friends that all take care of specific things that are her equals and not her generals. This frustrated me because it undercuts how devious and capable she seemed to be in the past. Okay, I know I said Carmilla was last, but this is a review, so I just have to suck it up and finish up this character roster. Sypha Belnades is a mage that starts off by making tiny flirtatious insults at Trevor, but as the series goes on, they get meaner and meaner. When he throws an insult back, she gives him the cold shoulder. It's annoying to slog through, and I'm glad they cut out these insults almost completely from the 4th season, I think. Or maybe, like Trevor, I just became depressed and numb to it all. She starts off as a mage within her people that usually don't practice magic, and my goodness, she's the most OP character of the entire series. Why, with prep time, I'm 99% sure she could actually solo this entire Castlevania TV show. Basically, everyone has a hard time fighting monsters here and there, while she's Super Saiyan Gokuing her way through entire armies. Every now and then, she does indeed falter, and Trevor or Alucard are there to back her up. However, most of the time, you're going to be seeing her helping them out. As the show progresses, Trevor actually finds little trinkets, unique items, and weapons, and these are things that make him stronger. Belnades, however, doesn't find a book on how to use new magics. She just seems to get more abilities Because magic is strong in the Castlevania universe. I get this. But in the video games, you have that, like, resource bar. In the Castlevania cartoonime, you don't have anything. It's just infinite. Belnades never gets tired? Heck, at one point, she moves an entire castle. Literally the strongest thing in the entire Castlevania universe. But after less than 20 seconds go by, she's up on her feet and ready for action. It would have made a more interesting dynamic if she was passing out every now and then, whenever she pushes herself too hard. This would have balanced out the team dynamic, and balance is almost always key. Shut up, Eric. Her personality is upbeat despite being so condescending with Trevor. Sorry, I mean flirting with him. And she has this optimistic view of the world despite being part of a nomadic tribe in the 1470s that has gone and seen so much death, betrayal, monsters. One thing I'll give her is it's fun to see a positive character in that kind of atmosphere. I myself have gone through some horrible and traumatizing things in my life, and I kind of cope with it through comedy and my upbeat attitude. The animation quality is good. At slower moments, it seems rather stiff, but during combat scenes, it's so smooth and fluid. The voice acting is good, but like this show's made in English, so I wonder how the Japanese dubbing is. Sometimes the voices are not aligned properly with characters, or it sounds as though there is a mild echo in the voice because it wasn't edited professionally. Some voices don't go well with their characters, and if I'm going to have diverse language characters speaking with accents, why don't you make them say occasional words from their homeland? You think an old school Viking is going to say the F word every 2 seconds? They should have done their homework. They should have looked up in history texts what kind of words were considered curse words back in the 14 or 1500s. I hate it. It's a serious pet peeve of mine to have a show whip out creative 2010 and up insults and have fully grown adults using them as if they were 10-year-old children whose parents weren't around and they knew they could get away with it. Especially when you make a show that's based off a certain time period and you want to accurately depict a mood for the setting we are all supposed to feel we're in. Seasons 1 and 2 are decent, it has some great emotional moments, and the story all feels like it's leading up to the apex of that season finale. I don't like the story direction and a lot of the character writing, but the art style and animation are great. You could probably get away with just watching these 2 seasons. However, then you'd miss out on the amazing character development that Isaac goes through. Season 3 and 4 kind of feels like that town that you have to save at the beginning of a lot of Castlevania games before you reach the castle. You know, it's like the first 5% of the game, and then the rest of it follows that castle. Well, this season kind of feels like the opposite of that. So unlike the games, they decided to do 95% little towns and then end it on a 5% castle adventure. This series invents a lot of things, from new characters to telling their own main stories. I wouldn't have minded any of this if only they had focused on the most important character of the entire Castlevania series, who gets the least amount of development and very little screen time, and that's Dracula's castle. When you play the games, this castle is alive. Like, you'll open up a door and there's a dark library, but then when you try to go back through that same door you came in, it leads to a totally different place. It's really like some wild, fourth-dimensional maze that's almost like an insane mousetrap, and once you're in there, it's just going to slowly eat away at your soul. I would have started off Season 3 by having our 3 main protagonists not able to find their way out of the castle now that Dracula is not completely there to control it, with a side story here or there about other characters finding their way back to the castle or neighboring villagers attempting to find shelter behind its closed doors, and all of them getting lost within its confines and bounded within it. The show would have become a survival, Metroidvania horror like the games, and anyone watching would shudder, as they know how powerful and horrifying this castle really is. The goal Team Belnades, I guess it's Team Trevor, would be to find the throne room and finish off Dracula's essence, once and for all, in order to free the lost souls trapped within the castle's walls, or those yet to be eaten. Shame it didn't play out like that. At least we got the concept that Christianity's crosses aren't the driving force behind vampires' weaknesses. Turns out it's the vamps have trouble with geometric symbols. I can't believe this is actually canonical in the TV show. Religion. I'm not getting into that debate here. But the religious aspects affiliated to vamps created an interesting concept within the universe we see them in. The holy things blessed by a specific god can harm them, and I don't want Castlevania the TV show coming in with their political depiction of how all different religious gods, emblems, and blessings all work the same way against vampires. Because maybe it's more interesting to see other dark creatures from other parts of the world having to go up against their religious tools and not throw all cultures into one giant bag. Oh no, a vampire! Let me pull out my gin lamp. That'll get them running. Or maybe I'll put on Jason and the Argonaut's fleece. That'll protect me from everything ever. They can't even touch me, plus I look fashionable while wearing it. And heck, what's the point of any of this when I can just pull out a child's toy and start hucking geometric shapes at them, which will really get them running for the hills. My final thoughts. I feel you already know where I'm going with this, but let's get into it anyway. This show has its ups and its downs. I would almost say more downs, but at this point, it's very personal for me. If you like vampires and Game of Thrones, along with violence borderlining on the absurd, and dialogue written by a person who watched Downton Abbey, but just didn't quite get it, so they replaced every word they didn't understand with a curse word, you'll probably enjoy this to an extent. Dang, it's so hard not to be subjective. It still has some epic moments with decent music, which I didn't really talk much about, but I have very little to say. The music from the games is some of the most iconic and groundbreaking 8-bit gaming beats, moving all the way up to the now. They use the same beats for the show, only they're less pronounced and it never really breaks out of that background music role. Which is such a shame. I guess the director is just not very good with their music choreography. This could have flowed like Cowboy Bebop with the sheer amount of amazing music that they had access to. Ultimately, I found they just dropped the ball on what makes Castlevania such an incredible video game in the first place. And that's the castle, which we only get to see like 5 or 6 rooms from in the entire show. Makes me think the writing team behind this series may not have even played the games, let alone beaten them. Look, I know the games can be really challenging, but it feels as though they all quit right after the first village level, and they just never really made it to the castle in the first place. If you like my videos just a little bit, be sure to hit that like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. It doesn't cost much, and it goes a crazy long way. Plus, who knows if you want to see like future episodes, that bell. Thank you so much for watching, and have an awesome rest of your day. Gross. Now I'm gonna have to rewatch Vampire & Bloodlust to get that disgusting Castlevania taste out of my fucking mouth. Using swearing to accentuate how I feel about something, that's the proper way to do it.